So hello and welcome. Today is Tuesday, May 12th. Today we're going to be talking about virtual reality and how that connects to some of the other topics we've been covering the last few days and last week. Last week we talked about kind of doing virtual field trips and what that means for students to be able to do things, through Google Earth or through Tour Builder or some of these other activities and ways to kind of manage that. Today we're going to talk about having them create their own virtual worlds. Now, if you have students from 6th grade up, all the 6th graders and beyond have worked with these tools before, worked with the app we're going to use today called CoSpaces. That's what we're going to use to manage it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to showcase a couple examples that we've done in the districts already for students that have created things at middle school level and high school level. And then we're going to go through the steps of how you would do that. It is pretty resource intensive. That means that it takes a lot of bandwidth to use some of these tools. Certainly the video streaming I'm doing now with CoSpaces is kind of a lot. So I'll just kind of showcase some of the pieces. We may not be able to go through everything just because it might lag a little, but we'll be able to go through most of it and kind of show you how that works. I would feel comfortable if you have students that are in 6th grade or 7th grade, certainly middle school, I'd feel comfortable giving them an assignment or working with them and having this as an option. But as we go forward, certainly we get back to school and back to class. This is one of those things we talked about yesterday with the SAMR model, where students kind of be able to go above and beyond what the kind of the traditional non-technological approach would be. So we've had students in the past do what used to be dioramas, and then they would start making virtual reality worlds of the same idea, meaning they were doing biome studies in science. Last year for 6th grade, they were studying biomes, they would do dioramas, and then we did a virtual version of that where they would do the same type of content as far as having animals and plants and different environments, and then they do a biome of it where they were actually, it looks like they were virtually there. And so we'll go through those steps. Another thing I wanted to share, and I'll throw this in the chat, is the idea of if you are interested in recording a story for younger grades. And so we've had students start to do that. If you go to bit.ly/RSU19 storytime, and that's all caps, and I added in the chat there. But the idea there is if you're interested in recording your own story, and these are just picture books and that kind of stuff, and we have some examples on there you can check out, but we're starting to collect those to provide those for parents and for students. So if they have, picture book at home and you want your kids to read that, or we actually did it as an assignment for some of our older high school students. And so we have a collection there that's starting of different stories that kids have read, and then we're going to be able to share those with the younger grades, which is kind of a fun way of giving back to the community. So that link is right in the chat. That will bring you to, I'll throw this page up here. That will bring you to this page here. We're going to be talking with the Newport Cultural Center about doing live readings. We haven't done that yet, but if they're interested, if anyone's interested in doing a live reading, we could schedule a time and have that ready to go so kids could join, at a certain time during the week. These are the lists of the readings that have already been accomplished. And again, these are ones by high school students or some teachers. You click on here, you'll see who the author was, the reader, what grade level approximately is, and you click on one of these links, one of those, and it'll go directly to a video. And so here's Bree reading Froggy Goes to Hawaii. And so you can have those available. The way we've done it for copyright issues is the live readings are available for pretty much anyone during that time. And then the recordings are password protected in the district. So if you have a student or a child that's in district, they'll be able to get on and view those readings. But if that's something you're interested in, if you go to that link, that bit.ly/RSU19 storytime, and then up in the upper right here, it says directions, you can click on that. And these will walk you through the steps where if you record your own story, you would be able to submit that and we could collect that. They don't go up directly. We do have a kind of screening process. But once that happens, then you'd be able to go and look at those. We'd add those to the list. So if that's something you're interested in, if you're looking for something, a fun way to give back, that'd be an awesome thing to do. And we'll add to that, resource as we go forward. All right. So we're going to talk about CoSpaces today. So CoSpaces is a virtual or augmented reality environment. It's all web-based. Your students, like as I mentioned earlier, if they're 6th grade or older, some 5th grade students have worked with these, but certainly 6th grade and on. I believe every 6th grade in the district does projects with them. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of show some example projects that you can do with this app, with this program. And so here's a handful of them. And these are ones that we've done in the past. If there's something that you're interested in looking at or maybe adapting it for your own content and your own purposes, you can certainly do that. Language Arts Book Project. So last year, we had all the different 7th graders at the time would go through, and they were all reading books in groups. And so it'd be 4 or 5 students in one group. They would read the story. They would recreate portions of the story, and they would put their subjects in examples that were in different environments of what they were from the actual book. And so they would take those students, they take those characters, and they'd recreate them in different experiences, and they'd have them do interactions. They'd have them code them. So they'd walk around, or they'd react, or whatever. And so it was a really interesting way for them to kind of showcase how they might, put that character in a different environment. And that really showed them, a little bit higher order of thinking, where they're like, what would happen if I had this character do something different? Some examples they'd have the introduction, they'd have the rising action, the climax of the story, the falling action, and then the ending. And so they'd show the different characters throughout this. It was super popular. Kids really enjoyed it, really loved it. They'd have their characters do different things. Let's see if this is loading. Yeah, this biome's loading right now. As I mentioned, these are going to be a little bit laggy just because I'm doing a lot right now. I've got video running while I'm trying to do some of these virtual reality environments. So it's not quite as bad when you have them by themselves, but that will be a factor. So that was a fun project to do in LA. Another project we did, we actually started this with fourth graders and moved up to fifth graders. Fourth grade in the state of Maine, every student has to do a fourth grade project, has to do a Maine, learning project based around, for social studies. And so one of the things that we did is for the Maine State Park project, each student had a Maine State Park. There are 48 of them around the state of Maine. We would download individual pictures from the state park, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. Ultimately, we'd love to get to the point where we're able to actually go to the state parks and take actual photos there. Maybe we'll be able to do that at some point. But for now, they just used existing photos that were available. They would download them. Once they downloaded them, we had a single, basically a kind of like a menu, so people could look on and go to a virtual version of any state park that have sound effects. We recorded a short little video of the students, the fourth graders themselves, talking about their state park. Hi, welcome to, whatever state park. This is, maybe find some animals here. Here's what you can do here, all that kind of information. So it's very similar to what you would do anyway in a kind of a report, but it's a lot more interactive. So people could look at it and interact with it and kind of click on things, and coding would come up and all this kind of cool stuff. So what I enjoyed about using the project, using CoSpaces, is it brings a lot of different technologies together and a lot of different aspects together, and allows the kids to be really, really creative. Let me click on this one, see if it loads. Like I said, it'll probably take a minute, but one of the things I was really happy with, at first we had students just put text in and it was okay, but when we had them read in video, them reading a little piece about their state park and share that in the video, it was way better because it let them kind of, really kind of explain what their state park's about, what they learned about it, all the kind of fun stuff about it. The biggest limitation I would say about this project was that because we only could use this situation, use the images that were already created, we were limited to what was available. And so in the future, what I would do is that actually for older students, make it a part of the project is go to some of the state parks and take photos themselves of the parks rather than kind of using the ones that were already available. And again, I'll show you how to do that as this loads. Let that load here. But it did incorporate a lot of different aspects, certainly the photos, the videos, the information, learn about which animals are available there, learn about what's the kind of, what things, do they have hiking, do they have biking, what things are available. I didn't even realize when we first started this that there were that many state parks, 48 of them around the state. Some are pretty tiny, but it was kind of a cool way to learn about them. Here we go. So this is the menu system we had. So initially we had like a menu that would kind of show you right here the different types of parks and ways to get around. You might recognize this looks similar to some of those signs that's around the state that you can kind of see, like how many miles to China or to Norway or to different places around the country, so around the world. So we'll load one of them here. This is taking a little while, but again, it's part of the reason why is because I've got a lot of stuff going on between the videos and all the different CoSpaces. While that loads, I'll also share. So parents, if they want to watch this, again, you don't have to have a virtual reality set to enjoy this. You can just look at it through a laptop. You can also look at it through a phone. So it's a free download, a free app. What we would have is parents would download their child's, aspect of the project they did, and they could look at it. They could actually just look at it, straight, just like this, like a regular laptop would, or they can kind of look around in that 360 view, again, depending on what they want to do. So if they have a smartphone, it's a free app. They could download it. It actually comes with a QR code. They could just scan the QR code and pull up their students, a project directly. They don't have to. Whatever they have, they can just use it, through any kind of laptop. But if they do have that, it gives a little bit extra to it. Another piece of this too is the 360 photos, as I mentioned. So I'll show you how you can download them if you want to yourself. But this was kind of cool. So we have the 360 camera in the district, and one of the things that we were able to do is students were able to take a picture and just to see how that works. So you'd use, if you notice here, there's a fisheye lens on both sides. This is called the Theta Z. And so you could take a picture with this camera and it would take a 360 photo immediately, one shot. It's kind of like if you've ever taken a panorama before, you've used your phone and you take a picture and you kind of move it around like this, and eventually it stitches all those pictures together to make a panoramic image out of it. It's the same idea, except for it does it all at once. So you're able to kind of step out of the frame, use your phone to snap a picture. This will take the picture. And again, I'll show you more examples of this, what that would look like. Let's see if that loaded here. There we go. So this was one of the 360 photos. This is, again, it's a little bit choppy here, but you get the idea. These are ones that were already done. And so this was the information that we put in. And if I click on that here, the students were able to program that. So they, click on an image or something in their frame, and their video would be able to pop up. Again, I think it's going to take a little while, but you get the idea. Actually, there may be sound effects in the background too of ocean swelling and that kind of thing. See if that loads. All right, I'm going to keep moving on. Other projects that we have examples of. So this is when we started. We didn't get very far, but I do want to go back to this one. So working with one of the history teachers, Mr. Hanish, he let me know that the Penobscot Marine Museum has a ton of these really, really old, almost 100 years old film plates. So these were back when they would take photos of like downtown, St. Albans or downtown Newport or downtown throughout Maine for a postcard, and it would literally be on a film plate. So they had very few of them, but the quality is really, really good. And so what we started to do is create little Central Maine communities where we go and recreate. We take a photo using this camera at the same place where that original photo was taken, and kind of you'd be able to look at it from then and now. You'd be able to see what it is, and then click a button and it would kind of fade out and show what it was 100 years ago. And we're able to place that image, that black and white photo from original, to where it would be now. And it's been really fun. We did a handful of those. We did probably like 4 or 5 of those. But we really like to do a bunch in the community, take all the photos we have and recreate them, and almost do a virtual tour of that area, what it was then, what it is now. Of course, sometimes buildings are not there anymore. You see on this one, it's got a dirt road where, of course, now it's paved, that kind of stuff. Even some of the pictures we might have an old-fashioned, have a horse and wagon in it, where we could replace that maybe with a car or something. Some of the landmarks we've been able to use is like the churches. Many of them are around still. There's a Grange Hall, I know in Heartland we use for one, that kind of thing. So that's been a really interesting social studies project that the kids worked on, where they would take original pictures from years ago. And then one of the cool things is all these images are allowed to be used. We contacted the museum and they said no problem, but also kind of seeing the transitions from them and now, to kind of go from that black and white photo into to what it looks like today is pretty amazing. So this is one of the bigger projects that I know, like I said, most, if not all, of the 6th graders have done. So this is the Animal and Plant Cell Project. And there's different variations of this, but this would be with Miss Barboza or Mr. Robinson. And what the kids were doing, and this might have been again, over the years, which grade level they did in 6th grade or 7th grade, but they would learn about cells. They learn about, plant cells, animal cells, that kind of thing. They would take that cell and they would draw it out by hand with, you can see on the left side here, just a black and white version of it. The reason why that's important is they need that contrast. We then use a program that would convert that into a 3D model. Now, we're going to learn more about 3D modeling tomorrow. We're going to use a program called Tinkercad. But this coordinates, it connects to this virtual reality component. We can put in pictures, we can put in videos, we can also pull in 3D models. So students would take those black and white photos, convert them into 3D. They would actually print them out. We actually would use the 3D printers to print out physical versions of their cell bodies that they created. But then we would also take that model, like you see in front of you, and drag it into CoSpaces. And now they would create a whole world that they were walking around or virtually interacting with that model. So as if you're walking around the cell. So there's, the central place of it, or the sides, the walls, and all that kind of stuff, the nucleus, all those different pieces of it. And so it's really an interactive way for kids to learn about cells, but doing all the different processes at the same time, to going from something they think of in their minds to creating a 2D model of it, to a 3-dimensional model of it, to a virtual reality world they're able to walk around in. It's really a cool project that the kids had part of. The bio project, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to see if this one loaded. Looks like it has, or is this still loading? Yeah. So this is an example one of the students created. Again, they were doing biomes like we had before, but instead of doing it just as a diorama or a poster or that kind of thing, they would create 360-degree worlds that they would use to recreate that biome. And so depending on which ones they're looking at, they would add animals, they would add sound effects, they would add information, so you'd be able to kind of walk around in that area or virtually walk around and see different things. So again, it's the same idea as what we've done before. They have the same content, but they're able to use that program to make a 360-degree experience that the kids could access to. Tour of Nokomis High School. So this is one's very apropos right now. So many of you know our old school, the old Nokomis across the street from the new school, is being torn down as we speak right now. It's going through that process, and I think they're maybe about a quarter or half the way done. So one of the things we wanted to do is we really wanted to make sure that we had images of the actual building before anything happened to it. And so the last couple of years, like a few of our broadcasting students went through, and we would take a 360 photo using this camera of basically every single room in the school. I'm pretty sure every single room got taken a picture of. And so we'd go around and you take the picture of it, and then the whole purpose right now is programming it so that you can go from room to room to do a virtual tour of this school. So this building that eventually will be gone, we really wanted the ability for students to be able to tell their grandchildren, hey, you want to see what my gym looked like when I went there years ago? So you're able to kind of take that photo and see wherever you are, different angles of it, walk around, look around. Some places, like you'll notice here in the gym, we actually added the school song. So when you put your cursor or you look at the school song, the words, some of the students singing the school song pop up, and you can hear the music in the background. We did try to get some of the sounds from the different areas, depending on where you are in the school, like the cafeteria or the lunchroom or whatever, different places, to have that kind of in the background. But we are having a virtual tour. I know the students right now, Ashton and Ashley and Rachel are working on it right now and finishing it up, hopefully to have that available. So when the old school is gone, we still have a virtual version of the school that we can kind of visit if we ever wanted to, or have that available to the public. I think I do have, yeah, so this is an example right here. So this is the gym. This is one of the photos of the gym. We have a couple of them. But again, you can kind of walk around. You can see as it was. You can see the banners. You can see all the floor, that kind of stuff, the logos. And this is what we're working on now, is basically a newer version of this, a little bit better quality version that will be available to the public. So, and this is also, like, as I mentioned, will be programmed. So if you want to go kind of do a virtual walk from right now I'm in the gym and I want to go out and leave and go head to the lobby. So I would be able to look at that. And then it would go to that space. It would go out to the entryway. The kids right now, like, we're thinking, it's not a big deal. But again, we know, like, our own children or our grandchildren, we want to give a tour of that. Again, this building will be gone, so that way they'll be able to have this basically forever, a digital version of the school that we can kind of share and look back to at any point. We'll let this one load, just can see what it looks like. So I was leaving from the gym, went to the door, clicked on that. Now I'm out into the entryway. I just came out of, and I can look, there's the entranceway, and I can look over here. I can see, and as you can see, we're still working on right now some of the actual, these frames right here, and I'll show you how this works, but they're being programmed. They'll be invisible once we get done, but where you can click on an area, and that way you'll go to that area. So for example, this way towards where the music room was, or towards the cafeteria, or this way towards the office. And so we're right now working on all the different pieces. So hopefully we can do a whole virtual tour of what this school looked like, even not so long ago. And student presentations. And so, we've done presentations like last year at the student Milty conference, which is, there's 1,000 students from around the state of Maine get together. And so we walk through students through. This is actually one of our students, Josh, and Rachel was there as well. It was on the Channel 5, presenting to other students about how to, create these things. So you can create virtual versions, which are just purely computer generated, or this kind of augmented reality stuff, which is what we've been looking at. And I'll go through both of those examples to show you what that looks like. Shut down some of these. All right. So I'm not going to go through all the steps because, again, this is one of those things where if I do, I'll show you some of the stuff that's possible, but it is a little bit laggy just because I'm live streaming at the same time. So we'll just talk about that. So this is my environment. This is, in a virtual reality. When I talk about VR, I'm talking about purely computer generated. I'm not talking about a real picture, but just CG or just computer generated. So if I want to add an environment to my space here, I'm going to click down here on the lower left. And we'll edit this. Now, just so you know, all the students in RSU19 have accounts. So if they need to join, they have pro accounts. So if they need to join, here are some virtual environments I can look at, I can add. So these are kind of like backgrounds that you might kind of play with. And usually the first time I do this with the students, they just kind of mess around just to learn how to play with it. And then we add a little bit higher end stuff. So I'm just going to click on one of these and we'll add a background here so you can see what it looks like. And I'll hide this. There we go. So now I've got my view here. I can kind of see around, look around. Again, these are things that you could have students, again, depending on what you're trying to create, almost any content area you could add to this and they could build something with. This is really a good nexus of different types of technologies. There's a little bit of programming, a little bit of 3D modeling if you want that, photography or videography if you want that, all coming to a single place. So down in the lower left here, this is the library, and I have a bunch of different stuff I can choose. And like I said, we're not going to go into all this. But what I typically have students do, there's some people that are already created. What I typically have students do is just grab an animal. So we'll click on a library of animals that we have available. And we'll click on a dog here. And I'll drag the dog up. And we'll drop him off right here. Make him a little bit bigger as he loads. Okay, so the idea here is that students can interact with these virtual, deposits here, these virtual creatures in this case are virtual items. You can, if you create your own item that you want, for example, tomorrow we'll create in Tinkercad our own customized things. We can drag those in or upload directly into CoSpaces. So that's what we talked about using the cells. Students who create their own models, drag those in or upload those, and then they could interact with them and make them do different things. If I want to code different characters or code kind of scenes or environments or make these interactive, I'm going to click up here on the upper right-hand corner where it says code. And that's where I'm going to have it do things. So for example, I could say, if I click on, the dog, I want to walk forward or turn around or bark or whatever it is and do kind of little interactions. Again, we're going to do more coding this week, probably Thursday, do a little coding piece. So again, we might come back to this and use this. A lot of this is blocky coding. And what I mean by that is if you notice here, if I click on the blocks here, this just what it looks like. These are kind of like Legos. So right now I say when this item is clicked, what do I want it to do? So I'm going to double click on the character here. I'm going to go to code and I'm going to turn it on. That means it will be able to be coded. So when I click on that dog, now I can do something. What do we want to have him do? We'll have him say, I'm not going to say hi. I'm going to drag these in here. Again, a lot of these kids are very comfortable in this environment where you're just kind of dragging and dropping as you need. We're going to say bark. All right. So again, a very simple code, not much going on with this one, but you get the idea here where I can kind of drag and drop stuff if I wanted to do. So he's just kind of sitting there. Actually, we'll have him animate. So we're going to have him move around a little bit. As he's sitting there, we'll have him playing. So he's kind of moving around a little bit. So this is the edit mode that the students would work in. When I click play, this is what parents would see or whoever you're sharing this with. So here it is. I can move around a little bit. Let me back up. And I make it so he's moving around. If I click on him, and he barks. So I would feel comfortable. We certainly, like I said, did it with 6th graders. I would certainly feel comfortable with 5th graders in this environment. They're very comfortable in that kind of VR situation where they're used to playing video games, where they can drag things. We have conversations about X, Y, and Z axis, right? They have to think in 3-dimensional space. So it's not just, flat 2D stuff. It's also 3D stuff. When we do coding with our middle schoolers, we start with CS first. All of our kids have done that, again, with IT class. But this kind of gets them above and beyond. So we look at this at 7th and 8th grade. They're used to kind of coding a little bit. They're used to doing stuff in 3D because they've done 3D modeling, 3D printing. And this kind of brings all this stuff together. So I would feel totally comfortable asking students to create a project. Again, you're supplying the content, whatever you're working in, language arts, math, science, social studies, whatever, but then adding them a way for them to interact with this to be able to kind of create something. And so the last thing I'll just share with you for today, as far as the building process, over here on the left side, this is one scene we're looking at right now. This is a virtual scene, again, all computer generated. So this is all CG stuff, all computer-based things. I added another scene here, which was what called augmented reality. And what augmented reality means is that you are taking something, a real picture of a real world, and you're applying something on top of it. The easiest way to think about this is if you hold up your phone and you're taking a picture of someone, and you see sometimes there'll be information on top of that picture, like maybe there's a square around their face or telling you different information about it. That's augmented reality. You're taking the real picture and you're putting something on top of it that's computer generated. Another example of this is Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go is a big hit for a while. And so if you play that game, basically it's taking a real picture of a real thing, and then you'd see like a cartoon character on top of it. This is the same idea. We're going to take a real picture, in this case, a 360-degree picture, and then we're going to show you how to download that and then use that in an actual event. So if you got a 360 picture of the school or whatever it is that you're trying to do, this will show you that. So this is going to be a 360 picture I took from Google Maps. And again, I'll show you how to do that. And then once you've downloaded that, you'll be able to upload that directly into CoSpaces to use as you want. So we'll let that load. While that's loading here, I'll just kind of show you how this works. So I'm in Google Maps right now. I'm just kind of looking around. If I want a 360 photo, I'm going to put my cursor in the lower right-hand corner. Let's change this to satellite view for a second. Put my cursor down here in the lower right, and I've got a little yellow guy, orange guy. If I drag him around, all these blue lines we see right here, this is where Google Street View has gone. Okay, so that means that Google Street View, the car, and we've probably seen pictures of it. We have the little ball camera on the top, drives around most roads and takes a picture. It automatically just takes snapshots, and it's geotagged, so it knows exactly where it was. Now you'll notice here too, there's a handful of little circles, blue circles down the bottom. So here's the difference. These lines are ones that the computer generated from the Google Street View car took. All these lines up here. These circle photos are 360 photos, but somebody, a person, used a camera probably similar to this to take a picture of them. So these ones down here are not copyright free necessarily. So we won't be able to use these circle ones. Any ones on the lines here, we will be able to use. Okay, because those are ones that, again, Google were able to give and they give the copyright for. So I'm going to kind of scroll in here on Google Maps, looking, kind of we'll go look where the school is. Now we noticed this, we mentioned this the other day, where this is an old picture, right? This is still when the school was being built. Right now, if I go to the street view of this, it's still just a blank field. These get updated, again, depending where you are, every few months or a few years, depending where it is. But what I'm going to do here is scrolling into this view, I'm going to drag my little yellow guy here, my orange guy hanging here, and I'm going to drop him. I can see the blue line right here. You only will fall on where that blue line is. So I'm going to drop him right in front of the old school, and I'll see here it is. So here's a picture. I can move this around, and there's a nice kind of view of the old school. Now, the reason why I can't zoom in and go around up here right in front of the school is because the car didn't go there, right? If I look down, sometimes you'll actually see the shadow of the car itself. Yeah, they've canceled out here, but sometimes you'll see the shadow of it. And basically it's a little sedan that has this ball camera on it. It has 9 cameras in all directions around it, just snapping pictures every, I don't know, a few feet or 12 feet or whatever it is, to take different photos so that they can make this 360 view of this. But if I want this picture right here and I want to use that in my CoSpaces, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to Google Extensions, and we talked about this before. This is at the web store, Chrome Web Store. There's one called PanoFetch. So PanoFetch will put a little icon, looks like a little yellow guy, up on your toolbar up here. And now when I go to a 360 photo, he's now in color. It's not just black and white. I can click on that. I can download this 360 photo to my computer. The size right here, it makes a difference. So if it's only 1, it's a very low quality. 5 is very high quality. The problem is it takes a long time for the download. So if I was working with students in a class of like 20 kids, I would say for right now, just to start with, to play with, let's just download 3, which is kind of middle of the road. But when I'm all done, when I'm really ready to go, I would do 5. The reason why I wouldn't do 5 at once with all the students, it just takes a while for them all to download. So this is fine to work with, but then if I want the highest quality, I would use this version. And like I said, it will download that file as its own file onto your desktop if you're using a PC, or if you're using a Chromebook, it'll go into your downloads folder. Then when I go back to CoSpaces, I'm going to click on here. I'm going to click environment and upload. And this is now that same photo into CoSpaces. And I can use this. I can still add library photos to it. I can make it interactive. Again, as you noticed what we did earlier when we did the 360 view in the gym, we put different blocks around different areas. You could click on it and it would kind of go to that area. This is the same idea. This is kind of programmed. Now this is one picture, but if I wanted to program it so that if I clicked on a certain, space of it, let's say I wanted to click on the school itself. Let me zoom down here a little bit. If I wanted to click on the school itself, and so information would pop up. Again, I would do code. I'm going to turn on code blocks. There is scripting as well, but this is work just as well. In this case, I would probably just do a single shape. I'm not going to do an animal. I'm just going to do a shape here. So I can grab this shape right here. And when I do that, I can make it be transparent. So I'll make it a little bigger. We're going to flip it up. So it's actually going to cover the school. And we don't want a yellow box here. Let's make that quite a bit bigger here. All right, so if I wanted to click on the sign, for example, right here. Now I want to make that transparent. If I double click on it or right click, I'll click on a Chromebook. I can go to material and I can make opacity down to 0%, which means it's still there. We just can't see it. So I'm going to turn that on to code. So here it is. Again, it's invisible for us when we see it, but if somebody went and clicked on that, you could have it do something. In this case, we could say we want information. So when somebody clicks on that square, I'm going to have them do an information right here, information panel. Put that right inside of there. Again, you can notice all these drag and drop. So if you look at the top of these shapes here, there's a little divot, a little bump, and that will fit nicely with a little divot that kind of comes down. And those are meant to snap together like Legos, basically. And the reason why that's important is it won't allow, let me click on this regional high. It won't allow things to connect that doesn't make sense to, right? So things that will snap together, which are things that should snap together. Okay, so I could put an image here. I'm not going to worry about that right now. But what this means is if I play this, if this was shared with other people, with teachers and so forth, they're looking around, hey, that looks really cool. Again, they could use a laptop. They can use their phone to do the virtual reality thing. But if I put my cursor over the sign now and click on that, that little information is going to pop up and I could have it say something. So again, you can imagine the use cases of this. There's, I don't know, hundreds, if not more, of use cases. I know I was at one workshop and one lady came up to me afterward, one teacher said, I don't know when I use this in class. And I was thinking, geez, I don't know when I wouldn't use this in class. Whatever subject area you're talking about, there's a way to have that interactive component to it. If it's a modern version of a book report, have it do that. Or if it's, a better version of a DBQ, with informational text going through different purposes. Again, whatever your needs are, this is just another way of showcasing it. So that was kind of the conversation about CoSpaces. Again, this was very kind of superficial. I know if you're going to do a lot more of that with your kids, it is something that you'd want to be there with them. I don't know if I would assign this virtually if they haven't had experience with before. All your students from 6th grade on have had some experience with it. So again, maybe talk with them as far as their comfort level, or just making it an option if it's something that you think they may want to play with. I know anytime I've showed this to students the first time, they love it. They absolutely love playing around and grabbing different characters and having them interact and doing fun things with it. So, again, that might be a fun tool to use going forward, depending on what your needs are. The other thing I was going to share, so tomorrow for a topic, we're going to talk about Tinkercad, which is 3D modeling. And the benefit of that is they could create pretty much anything they want as an item, and they could bring that into the VR world. So if you wanted them to create something specific for something you're talking about, if you're doing a certain topic, they could go create it or maybe find a model that's already done, bring that into virtual reality and then kind of interactive with that way. So really the purpose of this is all this stuff ties together if you get kind of a big enough view with it. All right, let's just check real quickly. I know I had a couple questions from yesterday. One question that came up, and this was from Gail, and we were talking about if we couldn't find an item or part of a document that she had, and so we were able to kind of restore it. So I just want to mention this. So if you lose something in your Google Drive, if you can't find it, I thought I had this, I'm not sure where it went, and so forth. A couple things. Each document themselves, if you go file, revision history, each document, spreadsheet, slideshow, etc., they all have their own revision history within it. And what that means is that you can go back to when the very first thing was created and kind of jump back and see each revision. And so that's one option. But if the document's gone, if you cannot find it, the tech department is able to restore up to 30 days. So if you lose something, or if something seems like it's deleted or not sure what happened, we can go back and restore. Now, what happens is we set a date. So let's say we set from today to last week. That means that anything that was deleted in that time frame will be restored. So if you did delete something you really wanted to, you'd have to go back in and delete that again. But everything else is brought back for you. So maybe you're able to find it that way. So if you do lose something, please let us know. If we're able to help you, we certainly will be happy to do that. And I think with that, we're going to call it a day for today's episode. Tomorrow, like I mentioned, we'll all be doing Tinkercad, and we will be doing 3D modeling, bring us into Wednesday. And then Thursday, we're going to look at, I don't actually remember what my topic was. I think it was going to be on coding. So there was a little bit of coding, a little taste of coding in the stuff we're talking about with CoSpaces, but we'll do a little bit more on that. And then next week we're going to go back to our basics. I know I've had some other questions kind of pile up about things like setting up Meets, Google Meets, and Classroom, and some kind of more specific questions around some of the tools there. So we did a little bit of extension this week and last week as far as things that are above and beyond. But then we'll go back to kind of our bread and butter, talking about Google Suite and kind of some of the stuff that are built right into there. So I think with that, I'm going to call it a day. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate you guys being here, and I will see you tomorrow.